The terms double top or composite top refer to a relatively new and very different way of constructing the guitar soundboard. Although many luthiers are using the double top construction method on their guitars today, most folks attribute its development to German luthiers Matthias Dammann and Gernot Wagner. They experimented with a material called Nomex, a lightweight honeycomb material for use in the aviation industry. This material is sandwiched between very thin inner and outer skins to make the soundboard. Even though the construction of a double top is very different from the traditional soundboard, a double top guitar looks just like a traditional guitar. It also has the tonality that you would expect from a traditional soundboard. According to Fritz Mueller, another luthier utilizing double top technology, guitars with double tops sound like a guitar, and players don't need to learn to appreciate a new tonality, as is often the case, for example, with super loud instruments constructed with lattice bracing in ultra-thin tops. This familiar guitar sound is achieved because double tops maintain the stiffness, thickness, and tap tones of traditional soundboards, and therefore are able to repeat the resonances that define the traditional tonality. Things to expect from a double top guitar in terms of sound are more volume and power, more projection and sustain, and even separation of notes with a large range of color and tone. It is also very responsive, able to be played lightly or pushed to the extreme without losing sound. Think of double tops as having that familiar guitar sound on steroids. So, how does a double top guitar work? The main advantage of the composite construction is weight. A composite top may be 25% lighter than the equivalent solid top, and this means a significantly greater ability to respond to the vibration of the strings. According to Fritz Mueller and his experience with composite top construction, is the realization that composite tops flex very differently than solid tops, almost as if the grain of the wood has disappeared. The result is a structure that can respond much more easily to a wide range of resonances. The double top was originally developed for the classical guitar, but the technology is now applied to a variety of instruments, including the steel string acoustic guitar. One luthier that uses composite top construction on the steel string guitar is Alan Dunwell. I am visiting with Alan in his shop as he demonstrates the method he uses for making a double top soundboard. One way to make a double top is to sandwich Nomex between two thin skins, like Alan is showing here. You glue in a solid piece in the fretboard, sound hole, and bridge areas, and some folks even glue in a solid piece around the perimeter, but this isn't necessary. The other way is to start with a normal thickness top and use a router and template to remove the area where the Nomex will attach to the inner skin. You can use a vacuum jig and a little creativity with your router to remove the material and thickness the top. Instead of gluing in a piece of wood in the fretboard, sound hole, and bridge areas, you leave this area solid and hollow out for the Nomex. Speaking of Nomex, Alan uses the 1/4 inch cell that is 60 thousandths of an inch thick. However, some folks also use the 1/8 inch cell. To start, you need to cut the top to shape and then thickness it. Alan cuts right to his top specs and therefore uses a bandsaw blade that makes a nice, smooth cut. He then uses a thickness sander to thickness the inner skin to 40 thousandths and the outer skin to 60 thousandths. If you have a coarse grit paper on your sander, then you want to leave about 5 thousandths extra on those measurements, and then use a palm sander or sand by hand down to the final measurements. You can use a piece of MDF or plywood with a raised edge to hold the top as you send it through the sander. Next, Alan cuts out the inner solid piece that will be placed in the fretboard, sound hole, and bridge area. This can be cut from an inferior quality piece of spruce. It doesn't have to be master grade. This piece is also 60 thousandths thick. The sandwich will consist of this piece of spruce and the Nomex, covered by the inner and outer skins. It is important that all of the pieces are in the correct position while gluing. To align the pieces, you can use a finishing nail. To cut out the Nomex, Alan uses a template that is placed over the Nomex. He clearly marks the sound hole location and the center line of the guitar. You can use a chisel or a sharp razor knife to cut the Nomex to the shape of the template. Nomex cuts fairly easily, but it also likes to pull, so be careful as you cut. Hold the template and the Nomex down as you cut. Cut out one side and then flip the template over to cut out the other side. The Nomex likes to move around a bit, so you might find it useful to place pieces of tape on the template to make sure it stays in the correct position. As you cut, skip over the tape that secures the template and then come back and cut these areas last. Now we need to cut out the part of the Nomex where the solid part of the top will be. Use the finish nail to line up the solid piece on the Nomex. Now you know why Alan clearly marked the center of the sound hole on the Nomex. Also align the center line of the solid piece with the center line of the Nomex. Place tape on the solid piece to secure it in place. Now carefully use the razor knife or chisel again to cut out this part of the Nomex. Work slowly and carefully, skipping over the tape that is holding the solid piece. Just like before, cut this area after the rest of the cut has been made. This is the piece of Nomex that will be used in the double top construction. Next, Alan clearly marks the up side of the Nomex and the solid piece, just in case there was any asymmetry when marking and making the cuts. So to recap, I have given a brief history of the composite or double top and talked about the benefits and materials used in this technology. I have also shown how Alan Dunwell prepares the inner and outer skins, as well as how he cuts out the Nomex. In part 2 of this Luthier Tips du Jour, Alan will walk us through the gluing process.